Quite.
I was gonna ask when you were on. This is where.
Sure.
Because I know you're still probably crazy this time of year.
All right, I believe it is 6:30 and time to kick this off. Welcome all our guests tonight. I get a motion to approve the agenda.
It's an amended agenda. There's one item added. I apologize for that. It occurred to me that we would be on a very difficult timeline if we went out for bids for food service if we waited beyond April. I know it's a weighty agenda as it is, but I think we'll all be in agreement fairly quickly.
All right, where is that at?
I saw 4.1, I put the approval of the amendment agenda.
Okay, gotcha. All right, could I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I move we approve the amended agenda.
Could I get a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Votes the same, motion carries. Do we have anybody for open forum tonight?
Do not, sir.
All right. Well, close to a record on open forum, lack of comments. I'm sure somebody will change that. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. All right. So I need a motion to approve the amendment to the agenda, although technically we kind of did that, but let's do that again, as long as it's here. Can I get a motion to approve the amendment to the agenda?
I move we approve the amendment we made to the agenda.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Can I get a motion to approve the regular open session minutes?
We approve the regular open session minutes.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. FFA banquet. What do we need to do there?
Nothing. It was an open invitation that we included in the board packet. Our FFA program, our advisors and students have requested your presence at the FFA banquet. And we just wanted to extend that in open session and appreciation for all of your support.
Oh, very good. Do we have an email with that date?
May 7th.
Thanks, very good. All right. Questions on the approval and transfer of payment of bills? Nothing. Could I get a motion to approve the transfer and payment of bills?
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer and payment of bills.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor of transfer and payment of bills, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. All right, the next section might be a little clunky. Let's give it a whirl. Reorganization of the board, swearing in of the directors.
Our first item is typically approval of election results. And so I just want to state in open forum that an election was not necessarily because we had 3 open seats, 3 incumbents that filed for candidacy. And so no election was necessary. So no election results to certify, if that makes sense. And at this point, I believe because you are one of the incumbents, that typically the president would say, I need a motion to certify the replacement of our 3 incumbents. And now you would turn that over to me for me to kind of take that.
All right. So say that one more time.
You'll need a
I clearly
motion to replace the 3 incumbents and turn it over to me. To do
Okay.
that as one of
Do I
them.
need a motion, second, and a vote?
I just asked for, we in previous board meetings have done 1 motion.
Okay, can I get a motion for the swearing of the new directors?
I move that we go forward with the swearing in of the new directors.
I'll second.
You want to vote? I guess, well, the one of us, well, the three of us, I would assume would have to abstain.
You know what, I don't know.
I don't think that
I
you
don't
have
know
to
the
vote.
precedent. I don't think you have to vote because we have to recertify new
Yeah.
candidates.
Okay, so those in favor, raise your right hand. If we find out we're wrong later, strike that. Opposed, the same. All right, let's do this.
Awesome. At this time, the board secretary will swear in our three returning members, Ms. Naomi Kruzak, Mrs. Lori Greer, and Mr. Sean Strong.
If you'll just raise your right hand, and you can read the print.
I, Naomi Kruzak, do solemnly swear that I am at least 24 years of age, that I am a citizen of the United States and a resident taxpayer of the Osage County R2 School District in Osage County in the state of Missouri, and I will support the constitutions of the United States and of the state of Missouri, and that I will abide by and uphold the Osage County R2 School District Board Member Code of Ethics and will faithfully demean myself in office.
Thank you. Next.
I, Lori Greer, do solemnly swear that I am at least 24 years of age. I am a citizen of the United States and a resident taxpayer of Osage County R2 School District in Osage County in the state of Missouri, and that I will support the constitutions of the United States and of the state of Missouri, and that I will abide by and uphold the Osage County R2 School District Board Member Code of Ethics and will faithfully demean myself in office.
Thank you.
I, Sean Strong, do solemnly swear that I'm 24 years old, that I'm a citizen of the United States and a resident taxpayer of Osage County, R2 School District in Osage County in the state of Missouri, and that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Missouri, and that I will abide by and uphold the Osage County R2 School Board Member Code of Ethics and faithfully demean myself in that office.
We get a picture after open session. So at this time, I'll accept nominations for president of the board.
I'll nominate Sean Strong for president.
I'll second it.
Do you have any other nominations? Can I get a motion to cease nominations and elect Sean Strong by affirmation?
I move we cease nominations for president and elect Sean Strong by affirmation.
Second.
We have not voted in the past. And so we have typically said, at this time, I return to the board president, the returning board president, Mr. Sean Strong, control of the board.
All right,
Congratulations.
thank you. It's an honor to be president one more time. Let's say one more time for now. I need a nomination for the position of vice president.
So I nominate Hunter Swan.
I'll second.
Do we have further nomination?
I move we cease nominations and elect Hannah Swan, board vice president by affirmation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have nominations and elected Hannah Swan by affirmation. Did we vote on that one last time or not? We didn't. It was
He
just-
did not, if it's by affirmation.
I mean, we're good. Could I get nomination for the position of secretary?
I'll nominate Mark Baker.
I have a second.
Second.
Other nominations?
Move we cease nominations and elect Mark Baker, board secretary, sworn to the United Secretary by affirmation.
Make it a second.
I'll second.
Nomination cease. We've elected we just elected Mark Baker, secretary of board by affirmation. I have treasurer. Nomination for treasurer. You get to sign all the checks, right?
I'll
It's a great
nominate
position.
Nam.
Do I have a second?
Second. I move we cease nominations and elect Naomi Kluzak, board treasurer by affirmation.
I have a second.
I'll second.
All right. Congratulations, you've been elected by affirmation. And we need to appoint a custodian of records.
That's usually me, the superintendent.
Just do it via motions. That's what we're doing.
I think it's an appointment.
Okay.
Decide.
I appoint you
Uh,
custodian of records.
I
Is
feel
that all it
appointed.
is?
I've been duly appointed.
All right, we don't need to vote on that. Okay, very good. All right, I told you that'd be a little awkward, and it was a little bit. All right, report, middle school, high school, report.
Good evening. It is, I'm telling you, that crazy time of year. I'm learning very, very quickly. Somebody mentioned today, it feels like we have 35 days worth of stuff to do and we have 19 days to get it done. So we're just in crunch time right now and it's just gonna be craziness until the end. But that's also the exciting point of the year because kids are getting done, graduation's happening, so we have a lot of fun stuff to head into. So starting off, we have contest season right now. So a lot of our groups, FFA, FBLA, and our FCCLA are all going to state contests. And in each group, we have students that are attending. With FFA, we have forestry, livestock, floriculture, and soils. All those teams are getting to go to state. And Bobby Winkleman actually got first high individual in our area. So we're really hopeful that soils team, as they go to state, they're doing I got to actually sit in and listen to their practice. Those boys really, really impressed me. I learned a lot about soil and just their answers. It was really impressive. It was really cool. With FBLA, we had 3 kiddos that participated yesterday. Nobody came home with any medals, but they had a really great time at their state convention and they learned a lot. And they were actually, it's a very young team. So we're excited to see what they're going to do in the future with that. Most of them are all freshmen. And then with FCCLA, they competed a few weeks ago. And we do have our one student, Carly Franks, who's going to be competing at the national level this summer. So we're really excited to have a national competitor. So all of our teams are doing a really, really great job at that state level. So we're also crunch time for state testing. All of our state testing is going to happen that first week of May, EOCs and MAP testing for us. The 8th grade is going to go into that second week of May just for a couple of days to get it all done. Our teachers are working really hard to make sure our students are prepared. So I'm really excited to see what those scores are going to look like next fall, to see where we've came and see how far we can go in the future. So we've been working on our schedules for the high school and middle school. We have them all set, ready to go. We're really excited what they look like. This week, we're actually starting to let the students start scheduling their courses, starting with juniors today and working our way down. So we're gonna have our May 3rd is gonna be our orientation night for 6th grade and our freshmen. We're also gonna do something a little different this year. We're gonna add an activities night into that night as well. So what that's gonna look like is all the different clubs, organizations, sports teams are gonna have a booth in the gym during the orientation night. So students can actually come in, not just freshmen or 6th grade, but anybody that night to check out some of these different groups, kind of to drive some interest. They're gonna have fun things at their table to really get everybody excited. So hopefully they can think about what they want to do now. Then we'll do it again in the fall where the kids can actually sign up for the clubs, hopefully to drive that interest, build some of our clubs up. So we're kind of excited about that, something new that we're going to add in. So we've also created a leadership team at the high school. I've created it with one teacher from each content area group. We've been meeting once a week. We started looking at our handbook, kind of to change, make sure that everything's correct in our handbook, just tweak a few things that we need to fix along the way. What they do is we get together and talk about it. They go back to their groups, get their ideas, and then come back and help make decisions. So it's a group that's gonna help make decisions, bring ideas to me and the admin team, things that might need to be addressed, and just a group to help really drive our school. And I'm really excited about the people that are on that team and what we can do. And then what I've also added on here is just our graduation schedule. That week is gonna be crazy, but yet exciting. So that's where we are at the high school and middle school right now. Just keep going to the end. So
Very
any
good.
questions?
Any questions?
Can't believe it's only 19 days.
Right?
Honestly,
That's crazy.
feels like a blur.
No.
Kind of excited we survived. So
So
It's not
far,
gonna get-
don't
We'll
say
make
that
it
quite
19
yet.
Yeah.
All right, athletics.
Good evening. After the last board meeting, there were two big items that we discussed. One would be the possibility of a new conference. And so since that time, actually on March 29th, the following schools got together at Mish's board office, which would be the potential new schools for the conference. Be Lynn, Russellville, South Callaway, Eugene, New Bloomfield, Harrisburg, Fayette, Salisbury, and West Rand. And we spent a majority of that time talking about the document that I shared with you in my board report, and just talking about our school histories, our school conference histories. And so I just today wanted to talk to you. So in my report, I highlighted which schools in our current conference would also be potentially joining this potentially the new conference. And then I just listed a lot of the reasons that I think that we should be making this move. And so why are we in our conference now? Well, I think tradition and history. We've been in the Show Me Conference since the 70s. That's a long time. And we're tied to those communities. Over time, I think what worked then doesn't necessarily work now. And so a lot of those things were things that we talked about. Obviously, travel was a major concern of ours. We, as far as mileage is concerned, about double our travel time, but the travel itself is actually, in a lot of cases, the same, just because we're not going down, back winding roads, which also, you think about some of the schools that we travel to, they can be a little bit hazardous in some ways. And so those are some of those concerns. If you look at our enrollment differential, we go from 281 to 61, right? And so we narrow that gap, which then also increases our competition. The number of athletics and activities offered by all schools in the conference consistently is a big piece of that. We are still at the core of our current conference is also going into this new conference. And then finally, I know one of the big questions that was asked of me is how many of those schools that are in our current conference, right, can we still play them? Yes, we can. And I've engaged in conversations with several of those schools to make sure that they could still be non-conference opponents. And so, kind of where are the next steps? The next steps that we talked about at that meeting was coming back here and talking to you. And so my recommendation at this time, given that the opportunity would present itself, I would say that that this would be the right move for us. And so
What's the furthest school that we go to now?
the furthest school that we currently travel to. Sorry.
Probably in conference. Be probably Eugene or no?
Right, Tuscany.
Yeah.
Are they still in the new conference?
They're
not.
They're one of our.
So even though it sounds like, so are we in the new conference? Is there any school that's further away than Tuscumbia?
Oh, Lord, yes.
Yes.
Scotland County is a whole. They ask a long way.
So with that, so that they would be included as a football only conference. And the reason that is a possibility So for example, West Rand at their board meeting just recently voted no action. So they are wanting to see kind of what happens and what develops, I think would be my speculation on that piece. They are kind of their holdup with their current conference. They're battling a lot of their schools in their conference going to eight-man football, right? And so with that being said, with Eugene and New Bloomfield currently not having football, that is kind of a concern of theirs, which I mean, every school district has to look out for their best interests. But when a majority of their conference leaves to join the state conference, I don't know if that, I think that might, and I just received an email today that once kind of the next steps are taken, that they will kind of reevaluate what that.
So other than that one, what's the furthest one then?
That would be Salisbury and West Rand, which are 96 and 109. 109 miles, 96 miles.
Scotland County, that's all right.
A little bit further. And so
So Scotland County.
in those cases, we talked about being creative in our scheduling, right? And so with Scotland County, for us in our infancy stages of football, right, that would be a good game for us to play. But being creative and doing something like playing at Harrisburg, right, kind of an in-between point for both schools, we would play at a neutral site, was something that kind of we discussed and toyed with. Now with West Rand and Salisbury, we would do things like we would only travel to one of those schools every other year, right? And then when we did that, we would play all of our teams on like a Friday night. So our softball girls would not travel, right, on a Monday night that far. We would kind of double schedule those so that we would play softball and football on the same night. If that makes sense. So
with days off afterwards, kind of the conference and recognizing that we're kind of spread out, that we were gonna have to be creative and kind of meeting in the middle, or being creative with our scheduling so that we could take advantage of some of those longer hauls, maybe being on Friday.
Right.
or something.
right. So we would do that, Paul, on a Monday night and then have kids come in, right, train for school the next day.
In fairness, you can't, I don't mean to interrupt you, and this doesn't mean that I'm against moving or something like that, but that doesn't affect winter sports or spring, in the spring and in the winter, you're gonna have to go on a school night to Fayette, and you're gonna have to go to, I don't know, maybe we're playing Scotland County in football only, if I'm reading this correctly.
Yes. Yeah.
But like, you're talking about Salisbury, everything, baseball, track and field, everything, that's 2 hours one way. Just full disclosure for everybody, in the middle of the week, we would have a 2-hour one-way bus trip there and home for athletics for some of these teams.
Right.
Isn't that fair to say?
It would, yes, but, and that's kind of what I was talking about with our creative scheduling, right? So we would move those games to a Friday so that they can.
As we can, I mean, we got to
Right.
accommodate their schedules.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
But-
I just don't know if we're going to be able to do it for everybody's basketball schedule, baseball schedule. You know what I'm saying?
Right, it would
Might be
definitely-
easier to deal with when you can double up on your football, like you said.
Right.
And I have no doubt that you're going to make every attempt to do that.
Yeah.
To take care of us, but I think just our parents' community ought to know
That there is a possibility.
that there's going to be some long hauls on school nights for our kids.
Right.
If we make this switch. Fair to say. Okay.
I like that the majority of the like size schools that are in our current conference would be traveling with us to this. And then I think in looking at some of these other conferences that you've shared with us as reference, the EMO, Eastern Missouri, and the Lewis and Clark Conference, I think we probably haven't realized how good we've had it as far as proximity to these other schools. And so I think if we're wanting to play like-sized schools, I think this is what we're going to have to do. And I think it would, in general, yeah, there's a few outliers that I'm not thrilled about driving to Salisbury or West Train, but those that they usually have good programs too, and it's a straight shot up 63, so it's not that bad. Right.
Do these other schools play, the only one I'm familiar with, and I don't know if we have other sports that are kind of on strange schedules, like junior high volleyball. That's
Yes.
the one I'm familiar with. Do they
Yeah.
play a normal?
Volleyball is the only one that, if you look at the comparison sheet, I mean, it is essential for us for things like all conference, right? For New Bloomfield and Eugene to join as well, because those are the schools that would be offering volleyball. So, but it's not really any different than what we're doing now. There are not as many schools in our current conference that have volleyball, so we, right?
I mean, like the junior high, we do volleyball.
Oh, in the fall,
Junior
yes,
high.
yeah.
And so that would or wouldn't change.
So
what we
New
do,
Bloomfield and, well, New Bloomfield does it in the fall, Eugene still does it in the spring like we do. But we've talked about the possibility of moving that as well. And so, you know, as far as volleyball is concerned, there's really no difference between where we would go with the new conference, except for the fact that we get a fresh start and able to do things like that, which we've been discussing for the last couple of months anyhow.
So we have five of our 9, including us, that are seriously looking for new conference homes to play like-sized school with a reasonable degree of correlation in terms of student population and talent. And of course, a couple of those are football schools. New Bloomfield hasn't committed to football at the junior high or high school level, but that's kind of the murmur there, is that they're starting from the bottom up. And so part of our decision has to be, you know, if we don't go, then we have to start thinking about a reconstituted show me conference that we don't know what that looks like either, because we'll have to invite schools that are looking for a home as well, because there won't be much left of it.
so is the show me conference like today, is there still such a thing as the show me conference?
Yeah, and
There's
this would not
the
take
remnants of
effect.
one, or
So what we decided to do is go through this round of board meetings with everybody in the new conference and the existing interested parties in the show conference. Shop our board, Board of Educations, see what the level of commitment was before we put bricks and mortar to creating the new conference. It's to generally gauge entrance and acceptance and whether or not we would be willing to transition.
so is it more likely than not that the old show me conference is going to, for lack of a better word, implode?
Yes.
If not this year, next year. in my opinion.
And
This-
because they're on a 2-year cycle, you'd really like to make the commitment now to get through next year
Correct.
as is, and then the following year, go to the new conference.
That is correct.
So next year would be as is.
You don't like athletic contracts on 2-year cycle? Is that what you're talking about?
I believe the schedule, is the schedule for next year already
Yeah,
set?
it's already set. unless
So
we'll
you-
agree to accept
Oh,
the
so you
contract.
need
Yeah.
another-
All right, all right.
And you would give everyone 1 year to kind of plan what their strategy would be for 24-25.
That's what you're talking about, moving in 24-25, right?
24-25, yeah. And that would be the next football cycle as well. So that would make sense for us to be able to.
And we go to varsity at that point in time.
That is correct.
Would you repeat the schools that are in this new proposed conference, please?
Lynn, Russellville, South Callaway, Eugene, New Bloomfield, Harrisburg, Fayette, Salisbury, West Rand.
Why not?
They don't want to go.
They're twice as big as any of these other schools.
I mean, I assume Fatima's not expressed any interest in this.
No,
I'm sure they know what we're doing. What's that?
I have just curiosity on.
No,
And I will still play them, but it just
Yes.
won't be in
Yeah.
conference.
and we've already discussed keeping them in non-conference. So
They're very interested in continuing.
they are, yeah. I don't want to speak for their.
But the reason, I mean, they're twice as big as we are, is the real reason. I mean, our goal of this is to get to like size schools.
Correct. That's exactly correct.
our goal's not football though, here.
I mean, it is a driving
Okay.
factor as well.
I just can't believe we'd even be bringing it up if we didn't have a football program.
Yes.
Is that fair?
I think that is a driving force. I don't.
And I'm not necessarily saying it's a negative, I'm simply saying it's a fact, right?
I
Like,
think it is definitely a driving force. There's-
Okay,
There's no
okay.
question about that, but I also think that when you look at all of our other sports and activities, it is also a beneficial piece for their success as well.
An argument can be made to play better people makes you better, and whether or not, and your conference schedule has absolutely nothing to do with your ability to
You're right.
go
I-
forward
I-
in districts and in the state tournament. And I mean, there's that into it too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, baseball right now is a perfect example of that. Our season's record right now is 3-10, but in district play, we're 2-1, right? So-
Right, no, yeah, it's like that's,
And that's, I mean, I've stood up here and talked to you about that as well. I mean, playing up is a big piece of that, I think, for postseason preparation, those,
Flip side of that is pretty demoralizing to have that kind of record.
and not have a conference championship.
I would say that,
Mhm.
help me out here, Chris, because you've been in nearly every conversation. My impression is not that they're introducing a new conversation to Lynn this year. My impression is that this has been a 2 to 3 year discussion.
Right.
And now they're recognizing that not just our football program has started to drive some of us are not like the others, but Russellville's football team, South Callaway's football team, and now we come in and they start to see some momentum. And now New Bloomfield, again, I don't want to speak for New Bloomfield, but starting the rec league and possibly pushing up, that's come well, we've had this discussion and maybe it makes sense now for us to go ahead and go through it, considering so many of us don't look like the others.
We're not the first school to think about, right, even a showing conference either, right?
Then we got
Schools
School
that we
Station.
talked about several times, right? So kind of looking for the last couple of years, right? And so for us, I think this decision makes sense for all the factors that I gave you today. I think in the long run, this is going to be the most beneficial for us. So-
Ultimately, what's the protocol here? I mean, ultimately, is this something we vote on or?
If you want to move forward solidly with a commitment to insert the name of new conference, then yeah, we probably need a vote. If we're going to abstain or you're interested in more information, then I would need to know. That doesn't require a vote, obviously, but if we're solidly committed and want to take that step forward, then I would be more comfortable if we voted on it as a vote.
And we did talk about it last month. I mean, if anybody received any feedback one way or the other.
I would say I had a few people talk to me about it positively. So we would do that and we would make that motion and probably the action items.
I think we can make a motion at any part of the agenda if we're choosing to vote on it. But that's up to you guys. Somebody would have to make a motion. Second.
Does this give anybody any heartburn?
yeah, me. We're making a motion to go into a conference that doesn't exist yet. I don't know, just seems like from a protocol standpoint,
Which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
well, I mean, like, I would think athletic scheduling is in the hand of the administrators if we hired to do that, right? I'm not so sure that's a board, that to me seems almost like a micromanaging thing.
Well, that's why I wondered if we even needed a motion to do it other than, I mean, maybe we're okay just saying, yes,
I mean,
we are not opposed
It's a
to
pretty
it.
big deal. I mean, I get it, like that we would want to, that Chris and whomever want the board's endorsement. I get that totally. I mean, yeah. This kind of seems a little early for me, but that, I mean, we don't, because the intention, I think, if I heard you correctly, was just to get some feedback on it. At this point, we just make a motion and vote that we're behind it if we go type of thing.
I mean, I'd be okay with that too.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a chicken and egg thing, which do you have a conference first, but you have to dissolve the old, so now I wouldn't want to make a decision for you guys. It's kind of where I'm at with it. If I tell them, hey, we're going, and then I come back to you guys and go, how you think about that? I'm not really asking you at that point because you can't influence the outcome. I'm interested. Yeah, it's my school district. My son goes here, but you guys are the community. And so I'm very interested in what you want to do as a community. Tough deal. I didn't even realize how old the Show Me Conference was.
When you go back that far, and if you still have the original members, I mean, obviously over 50 years, some schools are gonna increase in size and some are, I mean, it would have made maybe more sense for the
Before the
schools
Show Me
to self-select
Conference,
out.
There was a Three Rivers Conference. When I first came.
How long were they
State
around?
They're still around.
They still around?
You're talking about like Washington, Boise, New Haven, and all that? Isn't that Three Rivers Conference right now?
Four.
That's 4.
Yeah.
So they had a river like had teams.
That's like 6 minute abs with 7 minute abs. We see the number of rivers and we add one. You know,
Shoot.
I mean.
I'm okay.
So you're the one,
I'm the one who's concerned.
you're
obviously.
the most concerned, so.
I understand. Like, if we do vote to endorse this right now, we are voting to endorse definitely more transportation costs, which is fine if we're committed enough to that. That is what we're doing. And pretty long travel nights, and it will be in the week, regardless of how hard this Coach Minix works, and I know he's going to accommodate our kids. He will, but when you're talking about all events, and you do have to play every conference team in your sport, you know, we're gonna have to play all of them. It's not like we can just go a couple years and not play Salisbury, that type of thing. If we're good with that.
But it sounded like there were 2 of them that are a haul.
So basically, every other year, we're gonna go there or they're gonna come.
Yeah,
here.
they're, sure,
So if you
of
if
course.
you managed it correctly, maybe you would just have 2 of those long nights per sport per year, if you could flip flop it. So it would just be 2 per sport each year.
Oh, because
Because the-
right,
girls and
long
boys,
hauls.
Right, if you could get them all on the same night.
then it's just one. If it was basketball, you could all get on one bus, is what you're
Right.
saying.
Yeah.
But what I'm understanding you're saying though, is you're gonna schedule the long ones on Fridays, and then during the week, we still play like, Owensville, Fatima, those we are
Right.
during the week games, so we're not driving as much during the
But
week.
it wouldn't be in every week that you're gonna have a late night. It would just be, each sport is
2 nights during.
Two, it would
the
be
season.
2 nights during the season that you're gonna have those long nights.
Right.
And hopefully those could be put on
Mitigated.
Fridays.
Well, we would do one home and one away, right? And then
Yeah.
That's the next year.
Right, so it would, it would be
But if I'm hearing right, you're saying we kind of have 4 long hauls.
4 long
2 of
hauls,
them
but
are
if
gonna
you
be at
could,
home, so.
Pretty definitive north-south right there.
Yeah.
Very clearly definitive north-south. Like it's the 5 northern teams are a long way for the southern teams. I mean, just, that's where
Guess
it's,
you-
for us and like Eugene, you know, if they're
That's
gonna.
The north and the south.
I mean, It's
Conference.
it's not any worse than
That'll go
when we drive to play St. James or Newburgh or Iberia. in my opinion.
Those are terrible drives.
Yeah, so, and they're not in our conference, but we always seem to play schools like that, so.
So our next step also would be if we were to pursue a level of commitment, we have to come up with bylaws. And so hearing your all's concerns as far as travel in the bylaws is where maybe we need to contribute to that discussion about the long hauls and how amenable we are to choosing an intermediary. And maybe we play, one of the long hauls, maybe we play Denton or whatever, we play them at South Callaway, on a South Callaway's away game. Did we do something like that?
Yeah.
Or we're just going to.
That's what I was talking about,
South
with Scotland County, right? Playing
Yeah,
on a neutral
Scotland.
site.
I was struggling to come up with West Strand or whatever, we could meet.
And
them
that's something
somewhere.
we talked about at that meeting, and I've had conversations with some of these APs about that specific piece since then, so. That's something. we're really something to-
Okay, so I think we've got all the cards on the table at this point. Are we at a point where we could say, should the Show Me Conference dissolve and a new one is formed, that we would support that?
Yeah, we're back.
Because once it dissolves, I mean, it's
Right.
over. The question becomes, if we vote to do that, does that effectively dissolve it, or are we just another piece of the puzzle? And it sounds to me like we're just another piece of the puzzle because
I think we're
discussion's been going.
bylaws.
Yeah.
I think I've got what I need in order for us to move forward and come up with something that is presentable or not, and we decide to go different.
Okay. So, I mean, not to speak, I mean, let's make sure we're all on the same page. And is there, other than Brett, is there anybody that has concerns that would keep them from voting for this?
I know that there used to be something in the board policy about travel distances. I don't know if that's still in there. That might need to be revised. I don't know that it's even still in there. I know it used to be.
At one point, you don't have mileage. so it's still-
Yeah,
so
there
it's
was a
just
certain
mileage travel.
amount of
It
mileage.
was.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I don't know that it's still.
Like when I was here, we had that
Mhm.
range. That would be.
Okay, we'd have to
you
check
can
that.
amend that. Yeah, that's.
Sure.
That would be.
Thank you.
All right. I think we're good.
Okay, the second thing that I wanted to talk to you about tonight, and this was at the very last board meeting, I was asked to look at our extra duty salary schedule. So what I shared with you are a couple of pieces. So this is our current salary schedule. And so you can kind of see, so what I did is I mapped out kind of the ranges and where we allocate each extra duty supplemental salary schedule piece. And what I did with this, I tried to address some of the concerns that were given to me. And so the four that kind of we talked about in the last in the last board meeting was aligning time spent in sports with fair compensation, addressing inconsistencies with head and assistant coach compensation, creating competitive stipends with schools in our geographic area, comparable school size, and what's being offered out there. And then adding weight room stipends, class sponsor stipends, and then new stipends to address the coaching supervision gaps and to address our growing numbers in sports. And so, like I said, I created five total options. Option one would be if I could do what I wanted, right? And kind of fling that magic wand, what would be the ideal situation? And that's this, okay? Obviously, it's a lot. I mean, it's about $150,000 increase, but that would address all of those concerns. It would also, I think, attract high caliber coaches. It would also retain high caliber coaches. I put in a years of service gradual increase, which is a common thing with a lot of school districts. I think it also helps retain our coaches, like I said, attract them. That's a lot for step one. Then I tried to just kind of narrow it down, alter the numbers, and then with meeting with Mr. James, I think we need to have a step-by-step process on how we get there. And so what I'd like to, and what I am presenting to you tonight is within our current, is to at least address the gaps that I think we need, and also adding our weight room stipends and class sponsor stipends. And so on the spreadsheet, all the way to the right, I put current plus new. So this is what I'm presenting with you tonight, or for you tonight. And then as every year, as we get more into the budget and see what's possible, address some of those concerns that you asked me to look at. And so I think we have a clear vision of where we want to be, right? And then over time, trying to address some of those needs as it's fiscally possible for us to do that. So as we have more time and we're able to dive deeper into kind of our budget and what we can allow for, we move those things. So.
And what version did this cost us?
This version,
It's version 5, I think.
this is version 5 plus the pieces that we need to address was $19,806.
You feel comfortable with that?
Not all in 1 year, considering everything else that we're juggling, but maybe over 1 or 2, 3 years, we phase that in. We're looking at a phased incremental approach to get us in a competitive range, but not necessarily, the sky's the limit, which was option 1, which I would be very happy if we could afford, but we cannot afford that.
So what are we addressing this time? Or are we just putting a framework in place?
I would like us to move forward with putting a framework in place that we propose with the budget this year as a new stipend schedule, and that we adopt that incremental for the next 2, possibly 3 years.
Questions?
I appreciate the amount of time that you put into creating these extravagantly wide spreadsheets.
Well, but I think that was a part of what I wanted to show you is that I wish we could just do all of those things at once. But if we do all of those things at once, that's what it's gonna cost, right? I mean, it is what I like to right now, absolutely, right? And taking care of our coaches is one of my primary responsibilities. It's tough to do that right now, right? I think, but I want you to know that we are looking at this and trying to come up with a game plan on how we can move forward in addressing all those concerns, because they are real concerns, just like I talked about last time. And so as we, every year, we're gonna be looking and analyzing and trying to figure out a way to take care of them in the process, obviously. I mean, in the long run, what this does is help our kids, which is ultimately why we're here, right? So.
That's what I took away from it, is you clearly have thought it through better than any of us will ever think it through in different scenarios and whatnot. Therefore, I personally have confidence in the direction you're going, just given the amount of thought you put into it.
Thank you. All right. And finally, I just wanted to give you a quick update on our spring sports. Track is doing very well this year. They've been in the top half of placing as a team in every meet, or even in the top third. We have 3 more big regular season track meets coming up. Friday, they're going to be at the Tomahawk Relays. Next week, they'll be at the Herman Invitational, and then that same week will be the conference meeting for our district, for our conference. Baseball, like I talked about earlier, yes, we are 3-10, but like I said, in district play, which I put kind of our district, for the teams that are in our district, we're actually 2-1, and we beat a team that hadn't been beaten all year. We're playing some tough competition, and so they're able to see that. And the big thing that I'm talking with Coach Campbell with regularly is, yes, we're playing those big teams and they are tough, but just focusing on the kids' confidence, right? And how does that translate into clearly when we're playing district opponents, right? And so postseason play is always, obviously regular season play is important, but when we get to that point, that's where we really need to excel. And so we're working through that. Golf, same way. I mean, we're playing very well. Obviously, there is some room for improvement. Coach Ross is working with our players to get there, but we've had some kids do exceptionally well in some of the invitationals that we've gone to. And so that's it.
I've watched them hit at the driving range. They can hit a ball a lot straighter than I'll never be able to hit balls. So
well, we have some really good kids on the golf team. All of our kids are good, right? But they're great, fun kids to be around. So it's exciting to see them excel. Thank you very much for your time.
thank you. Director of Facilities.
Good evening, everyone. We'll start with staffing and productivity. We're still looking for an administrative custodian, but unfortunately, nothing there. Billy Joe has been stepping in and doing pretty much every attempt and still holding down her job here. So kudos to her, and I really appreciate her doing that and making sure that all the events are taken care of. So we're making it. But hopefully next year we have better luck finding someone to do that exclusively. Scheduled maintenance and repairs, general maintenance of the facility, trying to keep everything looking good. Started working on HVAC again. We're doing our filter rounds, checking coils, switching everything over to the cooling here and there, so everything has to be checked and make sure it's going to be working right. So just part of that preventative maintenance I've been talking about so much. So, unscheduled maintenance, our indoor walk-in freezer has been repaired. Parts did finally arrive. The issues are fixed. Contacted Hilliard about our 2 auto scrubbers. The fault codes there, they're throwing, they suggest that we replace the batteries per their records, they're the original batteries that are in them. Unfortunately, to do both scrubbers are looking at about $3,000. Batteries aren't cheap for them. So, but I think before next year, we start using so much, we're gonna have to look into replacing batteries, or it's just going to keep getting worse because they just keep going off on faults, not wanting to work for us. So. But we do still have an issue with the walk-in cooler. It has that evaporator leak we talked about. It slowed down a lot during the cooler months, but it will get worse over the summer. It starts to have to work harder and pressures build. So we still have to look at that. I did receive 2 bids out of the 3 I have requested. They were pretty much comparable. By now, they're waiting on the 3rd bid to come in. I'm sure that I have, may have to rehab that 2 or 3 days because every day that stuff goes just a little higher. But we have not had to worry about it for a few months. But once it starts warming up, the pressures go up. I got to feel really well. So I just want to put that back on the table. So we may have to look at that in the near future. Our shopping equipment, our Bobcat is down again. It blew a boom cylinder the other day. It's just seals, nothing major. Get it fixed. The kits are readily available. We'll pick them up from this. They'll be redone. All the other equipment seems to be functioning. Knock on wood. Except for the mower today, which we had a weld part on, but it's working now.
Is the forklift back up and running?
Forklift, no.
Okay. Did I see a forklift bill I saw a bill in the bills
We
from a
shipped it off
forklift.
and did a
It's
bid on it.
transportation to and from.
Cause it's a really, really heavy machine.
Yell at me next time that happens. I mean, if we can get it on and off, I mean,
Yeah,
we can probably haul it. Because I remember it was
it goes forward.
not cheap to haul it there. Yeah, we could probably do that for you.
I got a feeling with that unit after seeing what it's gonna cost us to fix it.
Did we bring it back or we just leave it there?
It's here.
Okay.
It still does go forward. Had called Superior Service on a few minor refrigeration issues, ground source heat pump. That ended up having just a stuck reversing valve, which unfortunately, if it does stick again, it is an old unit that be able to find out. So that's another part of it. Maybe start to try to look at a replacement cycle in the near future of some of these older heat pumps. So, but cold spike continued equipment failure. He persevered, and the shop is finished. Looks good. We've been working on the finishes touches, which is done now too. Everything is completely ready to go. A little solder around the edges and some lubrication.
Looks really good.
Required on campus. Playgrounds Unlimited came in and installed the lower elementary playground last Thursday and Friday. They did it really quick. We filled the area with peak gravel on Monday, and the kiddos got to play on Tuesday. So they were pretty excited, and they were getting it. They watched it go in, so we figured we better hurry with that peak gravel. So, and luckily the Bobcat held strong for that. Our facilities and grounds, the overseeding fertilizer definitely paid off. The baseball field looks really good. Football field is coming in nice. We are actually on this. I was on when I wrote this on our 3rd cut over the campus. Now I'm getting my stuff. It was just, it's going crazy. It's good though. It's starting to look really nice. Get to spray all the fence rows and the building edges. And you should see results on those real soon. So we'll have sharp edges on all our fence rows, all the way around, all the way through on the other side, on the Lions Club side, our side. That way everything's nice and clean. And good edges. And I think that makes a good look for our campus. We rewired all the PA speakers at the ball field prior to the first home game. All speakers now work and it sounds a lot better. They just had one speaker working. We did need to purchase a little 3-channel mixer and some outdoor speaker wire to rewire the thing. It cost us under $200. Future projects, still looking to fix that drainage issue off the ball field, but they're looking at it. There is probably going to be some obstacles there, but we're always figure out how to get around and some of their utilities and stuff are running right in that area. So the fence at the track that is continuing to make its way over to the side is still on my mind, but hopefully before football season starts, I will have that straightened out also. I'm working on a summer project list. Every time I add something to it, I'm just like, I hit page rolls over. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? But we will get it done, and it's going to make the facility better. Goal is to, I want every student, every parent, anyone that visits campus to pilot the screen. It's getting better all the time. So, working very hard to build staff as far as my custodians and my help that shares that vision, and that we can keep making things look better, function better, and that way we can spend some time on actually bigger projects in the future.
Very good. All right, thank you. Superintendent report.
Awesome. I'd like to start out by recognizing we ran a process, as you're aware, looking for our new elementary principal. And I know we kind of talked about that in closed session, but all but one of our committee members came tonight to just show their support, and I asked them just to come in for a little while. They've done a great job hanging on for an hour, but I asked them if they could just come and wave to the crowd, but I just wanted to acknowledge their service and their collaboration and finding a new leader for the elementary. So just want to let you guys know I appreciate it.
Thank you. Cool, all was on the committee.
Also, Miss Everett, counselor, Miss Plume, our Title I teacher, Miss Pointer, our office admin and secretary, Miss Warren, 4th grade, Miss Udi, who is our librarian. Also not present is Mrs. Bauer, our preschool teacher, and then Miss Glenn, myself, and Miss Sassman rounded out the 9.
It's a big committee.
We crowded into the conference room and we made it work, and we actually had a lot of really good conversations. Like it was professional to the point, and we got the information that we need. But I felt like we really did enjoy all of the conversations we had with every candidate, and they did a great job holding up their end. So I appreciate that.
Anytime you can get together that big committee and everybody somewhat agree on your candidate, I have no idea if they did or did not, but it's a challenge. That's why I have committees typically of 3.
Well, we were all thinking.
But you're a better man than am I.
We'll talk about the details later, but we all had the same thing in mind. I think going in and then coming out also, we just identified the person we were thinking about through the process, and it was a good experience. So thanks for coming too.
Yeah, very good. I know that's a lot of effort because I know we had quite a few good candidates.
We did.
For the position, which is pretty incredible all by itself.
We did. Thank you. So culture and climate, just continuing to be present and engaged. Something that I wanted to point out is this is the point in our time as newer to the district, Ms. Sassman, Coach Minix, and I, Ms. Glenn to her new position. Eric's been here for a long time, so he doesn't get any of this credit, but we're kind of developing our sense of who we are, and we're driving, leadership committee, driving some process discussions that are allowing us to cultivate our culture at the same time. We establish consistent processes to follow and we write them down. And I'm a huge proponent of that. It's hard to talk about culture as this like amorphous thing. But as you're deciding what and how to do things, you have to reach back and ask ourselves, who are we and who do we profess to be? And is this new process in line with that? And I know that they're driving those conversations with those questions in mind. And it's a great way I've found in the past to build culture. Personnel and staffing, we're going to move to a lengthy closed session to include a couple of new hires. Of course, we moved a few staff around the elementary level to accommodate smaller than usual kindergarten, a Title I opening. We've had an opening in the 3rd grade and 4th grade. So we moved those around. Elementary principal search, we'll talk about in closed session. Professional development, I've said this kind of ad nauseum at this point. Remember, before we had a process to approve your professional request. That is not a professional development plan. A professional development plan is a focused areas of improvement that are in line with your campus and district improvement plan. Then there's a process to approve that those are in line with that. We will continue to kind of hone that. We'll still have our professional development committee, but though all of the professional development that we choose, for the most part, will be some things that are annual, like you have to go to this conference for ag every year, but the rest will all be based off of our campus improvement plans. Facilities, I defer to Mr. Wilson. We're also going to have a little bit later discussion about a couple of our RFQs. Bottom line with facilities, we're hoping they look better all the time, work better, and they give our constituents a better experience. Athletic and fine arts continues to be a funding priority, as do sports and sports facilities, and the fine arts and athletic facilities, along with our classrooms, will continue to be a focus for improvement. Budget and finance, still wrestling with the basic figures. Bottom line, we have a lot of things that we would love to do, but you can only spend $1 once. And so I'm trying to prioritize in the long run. We'll talk a little bit about our pay scale for next year and an action item, but in just taking an increased costs due to inflation on the transportation side, food service side, and then doing a lot of things that we haven't done before. I'm just juggling those. Which one do we do first? And then my challenge will be trying to lay that out, because I think in line with what Chris was talking about with the stipends, we can't just stall with inaction. Let's figure out a priority list and a long-range plan to incrementally make progress on all those areas. And I think that we can do that very well. Bottom line is we can always do what we've always done. We're trying to stretch every dollar to do more than we've ever done. And that's my focus for the budget. I know that's really ambiguous at this time, but.
Very good. When will we see budget?
Hey,
May.
you go. I'll put some numbers in front of you.
All right.
Huddle up. And then we'll approve in June. Because we typically do that.
All right. Well, a few years ago, we did kind of a working session with budget before the meeting, which helped. But I can't recall if it was because we had a lot of new members, or it was just because there was a lot to go through, and rather than spend, I don't know how long, maybe when you get closer to that, maybe look at how long you think it's going to take to go through the budget. Maybe we should have a working session the week before or a few days before,
I'd love to sit down.
where we can talk through it before we have a regular meeting. Sure. All right, discussion items, library program evaluation.
Thank you for having us. I'm Robin Baker. I'm the high school librarian. I'm Lady. I'm the elementary librarian. We are both new to this, really. I've been here a long time, but I've been in her shoes a lot longer. And so we're both just kind of trying to figure out our space, trying to figure out our kids, trying to figure out what's needed, what's not needed. And so we have some goals that we've set. I think you have our evaluation plan in your thing. But we have our goals, which are kind of consistent every year, that the library media services are accessible to all students and staff, that information technology is used to increase resources for students and staff, that each library media specialist collaborates with teachers to provide materials that support the curriculum, research, STEAM, and recreational reading. And above all, we want each of us to work to teach and instill a love of literature and reading for information as well as pleasure. So those are our goals. We then have objectives that we try to use to reach these goals. And in the second sheet of your plan, you can kind of see how we've evaluated that. We gave you a little bit of an evaluation of our library collection. So how old the collection is, how many books we have in the libraries, and the number of copies for kids. I would say probably our average ages are a little on the low side. In the elementary, it's 2004, and then the high school, it's 2007. So we're a little old, but if you're looking at nonfiction type things, history doesn't change too much, so that's kind of a good thing. Yeah, we just keep adding. So that's not such a bad thing. I think our circulations are pretty good. I was elementary, please check
We
out
see
books all the
everything
time.
with
Yeah,
kids.
you see them all the time. And the high school and the middle school, it's a little bit different. But I feel like I have my regulars that are always coming in to get books, and the middle school, the language arts teacher tries to bring them in every couple of weeks. So they're regularly checking out books, and our English teachers are doing a good job of, they're doing independent book projects in most of those classes. And so I've got a lot of kids that are coming in and wanting books that they're going to enjoy, they're going to read and things like that. So I think that's, I was pleasantly surprised by how many kids actually check out books in high school, because I wasn't sure, I had no idea. So, and then if you keep looking down, you can just see how we're meeting our objectives, what we're trying to do. And I think that that's going to change as we both get a little more comfortable in our respective areas. Yes. We need to go into any further detail if you have questions.
Any questions?
I was surprised about how many books we actually had.
Oh, really?
I had no idea.
Oh.
And how many, like, if you divide it out by kid, I was like, wow, that's.
Yeah. We really do. And something I've noticed in the, don't speak ill of the elementary while I'm standing here, but in the high school library, we have a lot of duplicate books, and in the elementary, I feel like kids checked out, like they wanted to read what their friends were reading.
Right, so having 2 copies is usually a good thing because kids want to check out books with their friends and read together.
Yeah, but in the high school, I don't need so many of those. So I found myself, I have a A+ kiddo 1 hour, and I've had her go through and pick out, if we have like 3 of something, she's picked them out, and we're kind of trying to pull them off the shelf. So that's going to be my next question, is how to handle those books. But yeah, we have a lot of books, but for some reason we have a lot of the same books. So I'm trying to expand that a little bit.
Any questions? It's just presented for information.
Presented for information.
Okay.
We do it annually.
All right, very good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Technology program evaluation.
You guys got a full plate tonight, so I'll try to keep this brief. Just keeping busy, mostly support items, just keeping everything running. Big thing now is testing coming up. Everybody's doing EOCs and map testing on Chromebooks, so just kind of crossing fingers, power stays on and no wandering backhoes find our internet connection. So just hoping so far, knock on wood, everything goes through good on that. One of the biggest things I kind of touched on before in the previous meeting is we're big project now switching over our SIS system from Tyler to Infinite Campus. Everything's proceeding on schedule with that. I'm meeting with them pretty much on a weekly basis. And then also going over data reviews and training. So a big chunk of my time is kind of working through this process, and so far everything's going through pretty smooth and on schedule.
Do you have a go live date?
Our go live date officially will be, I think, June 7th is when all of our data will be officially moved over and cut over. We will still do summer school in our Tyler system and convert summer school over at a later time. But when we start 23, 24 in August, that'll be on the new Infinite Campus.
Gotcha.
On May 8th, we have a meeting with some of our teachers and admins to kind of go over with them how we use our SIS here to kind of fine tune our teacher training. So once we get through that meeting, then we'll kind of better have an idea of what we want to train teachers on and what maybe features that we can use, but we don't necessarily need right now. Just kind of fine tune the training a little bit. But like I said, that after the May 8th meeting, we'll kind of have that kind of established. Then teachers and staff, they'll kind of have these online training modules they'll kind of work through at their own time available to kind of work through those. And then we'll come back and August and do some more in-person trainings with the Infinite Campus people virtually. So that's kind of the big project for this summer and kind of an ongoing thing until school starts up and even after 23-24 starts up, just kind of working through the bugs. But so far, everything's kind of going according to plan. Another big thing is cybersecurity updates. That's kind of the big buzz thing, and especially in K-12 schools now, is kind of staying on top of cybersecurity. And through our insurance policy, we have cybersecurity insurance, and they are pushing for all the schools to. They're putting some more requirements on that to be able to obtain that. So we're just kind of making sure that we're meeting all of those qualifications. Several things of that we already meet. A couple things, just kind of some minor tweaks to just kind of make sure we keep those up to date, and just a couple of minor things to purchase, nothing too major, but just kind of working on this summer, kind of getting all that up to speed. So we're covered on everything on all those points. Another thing working on is setting up these Clever logins for students. What Clever is a service that usually before what we would do is if we have like a website like Evaluate or MobiMax or something like that, I'd have to pull the kids out of our SIS, upload them to there. Every time we get a new student, I'd have to add a student there, or a student leaves, then I take them back out. So multiply that by 10, 15, 20 sites that we use, it gets to be kind of a big process that every time we get a new kid or one leaves. What Clever does is we sync our data to Clever. Clever automatically syncs through all these other sites that we set up. So whenever kids come in, whenever kids leave, they're automatically enrolled, they're automatically dropped. So it just kind of keeps everything up to date in a timely manner. So as soon as the secretaries add kids into our SIS system, next day they're all in all the other websites ready to go. And what also that does for them is I create a little portal page for them so that when a student logs in, they go to this portal page. It's got little icons for all these different sites they use. They just click on it, automatically logs them in. Used to kids in elementary, especially, they have like these little note cards that have like a list of 5 or 10 websites and usernames and passwords for all these. So we're kind of working, get away from that. We've kind of piloted a few sites now and everything's working good. Kind of done the sites that I can for now. Mid-year, some of these I kind of have to wait for summer to kind of keep from kind of disrupting too much data collection and stuff. So hopefully this summer I'll get kind of the bulk of the rest of them moved over. So next year will kind of be a little bit easier, especially for the elementary kids. So you in the board report, it's kind of got a little mock-up of what the portal page looks like. So just a few projects done recently is replace the sound mixer at the field house to hopefully get kind of better sound, especially for graduation and plays and stuff, with all the microphones and stuff that we'll be using. Should help that out quite a bit. Added some extra security cameras in middle school, move some stuff around for that. Replaced our data backup system. And then, like I said, some of the upcoming stuff is the update to Infinite Campus and get all the staff trained. Transition sites to the Clever portal, doing the cybersecurity updates for that, and just kind of our normal purchase and setup of new Chromebooks to keep the rotation on those going. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions?
Is this Clever also phone app compatible?
Or
are we just using it for elementary kids?
We use it for, we'll add some stuff for high school. I haven't added really any high school RE hall passes in there, but they can use it, but it's mostly for elementary sites. But I'm gonna get with principals, kind of make sure I find out I'm still kind of turning up little apps here and there that we're using that I wasn't sure that we were using. So just kind of getting all those imported there.
Other questions? Still keep it busy.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Action items.
services he added.
Oh, added food
Yeah,
services.
No, is it on?
Not here.
Sorry.
Okay.
FSB food service.
Okay. Or
That
be
is the
food
discussion.
services discussion.
Yeah, which could be a discussion or an action item, should you choose to go ahead and vote to pursue. But we need to talk about whether we want to go out for bid or not. If we do, then that would require a vote.
We have a
Discussion?
choice. We need to figure it out for bid.
I've already said based on the principle alone, I'm a yes, but
Well, I would also ask you guys to, are we interested at all in bringing it in-house, if that's an option for us? Where it comes back under our roof.
it's,
As long as we can get the, I know the issue with before was cost of foods and trying to buy in bulk was difficult to do it as a one-man show, as they can buy a lot bigger quantities and divvy them out to other schools, but
I would say if it's feasible to bring it in-house, if we can find staffing to do it. I think the quality of the food was better when it was in-house. But I don't know how difficult that would be.
Something that I would do in preparation for whatever bids we might receive is I'll pull our food service expenditures for the last couple of years before we moved over to a vendor. Then I'll pull our total receipts from the last couple of years. We'll just compare, take a look at what are over and under. If I recall from last year's conversations, just watching board meetings, there wasn't a huge difference between those two. I guess I could have pulled that before this conversation, but I don't think there was a huge drop in expenditures.
no.
no, well, it should have gone up.
Yeah, I think it did go up.
It was presented, if you were looking at what was presented to the board, it wasn't really comparing apples to apples. If you look at what really happened, I'm guessing the cost went up. Because we were looking at a 4-day week proposal, but the year before we were on 5 days a week. So it really wasn't a great comparison. So, and it's hard to make that comparison if you just took it and added another 20%, then it would have been more expensive. But who knows if that was the right way to do it.
Do we want to put it out for bid, see what proposals we get? I bring those proposals and those figures back to you guys in May and make a decision then.
You can get them that quick.
Is that including seeing if we can do it ourselves?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna do a cost comparison, and I'll reach out to a couple of folks that I know have run food service programs and say, based on this money and these kids, can you help me work through all of this? I've never ran a kitchen before, but I do know people that have done a really great job of running cafeterias, and so just reach out to them and ask them to help me work through the numbers.
So you don't have a specialty, like desserts or
I do not,
appetizers
I do
or
not.
no?
Eating, I'm pretty good at eating in the kitchen, but outside of that.
All right, very good. So
Awesome.
we don't need to vote on that. Just for information only.
Yep.
Correct. Okay. Now we go to action items. Architect firm.
So we had 5 firms that actually fulfilled our requirements to submit digital and hard copies, as well as go through the campus walkthrough with us. Those 5 architects were BA or Bond Architects, Facet Architectural Design, HTK Architects, Insight Design Studio, and Arc Images. Of those 5, I actually met me and our owner rep, Corey Bextemuller, that works for Navigate under our owner rep, met with them on Friday and then yesterday with each of those. And to give you a summary, and I think we uploaded the 3 that we met with, and I answered a couple questions from you guys, but you really can't tell a lot from those proposals that they give you. They look great. They're bound well. They have great pictures. A lot of people with a lot of different certifications and letters behind their name. All all of them have done a significant number of projects with school districts and projects that didn't involve school districts. I think what it comes down to for me are two specific things that I thought really separated the three for different reasons. What team are we going to be working with on a daily basis? What are their attitudes, their knowledge base? What's their approach to project-based construction on school campuses? And then this one was really important to me, and there was a clear standout in this. Whose project was it? And absolutely, it's our project as a school district, but I really was waiting to see which one of the architectural firms presented it as a community project driven through the school, but for the community. You know, what were their strategies to get community input? And then this was one in particular really separated themselves on, they presented, you know, you don't just want to get all this excitement, engagement, and energy at the beginning, and then they wonder, you know, and then you walk them through, you know, the day after you do the punch list. How do you keep them engaged and excited about the projects as you go through long range planning? And they had a plan for students, staff, and the community along the way. And the one that stood out the most for those two actually surprised me, and it was our last interview, was Bond Architects. I think a couple, to give you a better kind of a visual, some of the others, they gave you this target graphic with superintendent and the school board, and then administration, and then staff, and then support staff, and then community. It wasn't quite the same graphic, but Bond Architect would have had your community engagement in the center, driving the school that the community wanted, with us guiding those decisions and me administrating the daily operations. Having said that, it was pretty close between Bond Architects and IDS or Insight. They also had a pretty good team that I felt would serve us well. I don't think we could go wrong with any of the three. All three of them are proven. All three of them are very talented firms and very talented teams. Thoughts?
Questions?
Didn't the one do work with you guys?
Insight
Did, right?
is our architect.
Okay.
Thing I liked about Insight, I liked how they had the schedule in it. How things would progress. That was the only thing I saw that was different from the others.
It's got, at the end of the day, it's got to be about fit. So if Bond feels good, I don't have a problem with that either. And at this point, so the next step, they'll submit a fee schedule to you, and then you'll, it's either acceptable or it's not acceptable. And then you can go to the next one if it's not acceptable.
Absolutely.
They were the only one too that listed their estimated completion dates versus their actual completion dates. I didn't see any others provide those. They showed that who all they worked with, but they didn't really tell you if they met their timelines.
You're saying Insight did that?
Bonded.
Or Bond did. HTK also had one really impressive graphic in there. All of their projects on average came in 3% below estimates, which I kind of like that. Anytime we can not go over, I'm a big fan of that. And bottom line, I felt like the project manager for Bond was probably the best fit for us. And then their principal architect, so with HTK and even Insight, like Aaron from Insight is typically the principal, but he doesn't spend as much time on most sites as say he would over at State Tech. So we get a different project manager versus Bond, their principal architect and their part owner, they stay on site. They're what they call working principals. So they don't stay in the office except for in the beginning and the end. They're there at your every 2 weeks. You're meeting. I was impressed with that. I think the next step for us as a group would be to whether or not we had a motion to pursue one of those relationships and get a fee schedule from.
Normally I'd have really strong opinions, but
I'm interested
my
in it.
experience tells me flip a coin. And It's either gonna work or it doesn't.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's kind of, in the construction world, that's kind of the world we live in. If the stars align, the projects are gonna go well. But the last 3 years, nothing's aligned, so. flip a
Let's
coin.
hope the Bobcat has taken the majority of our bad luck. It's been like a summer of bad luck, and that it kind of draws it out of our major projects, our long range plan.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, these architects move from firm to firms, and by the time we get around to an actual project, who knows who's gonna be there. The only thing I'd say, as long as they've worked with a small school, then I'd say
Have some
great.
There's some roads.
That's who, if that's who the one that seems like the best fit to you, then you want us to make a motion.
Get a motion to move forward with an architectural firm, and let's not maybe, I think either one of these, bond or site, would be fine to move forward, presumably with a bond that if you can't make it, come to an agreement with them, you move on. So I would just say,
Sounds good.
select an architect, present it to us.
We negotiate with bond architects.
To be the school architect.
Be the school architect.
That's what I do. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor or further discussion? Let's make sure. Being none, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, the same. Okay, energy audit, that should be easier because
Much
there's
easier.
one.
We received one proposal that met all of our requirements. We did have some interest from another company called GRP, but they did not submit. The good thing about Navitas is they kind of are the premier. Navitas, Train, Schneider, maybe a couple others, but Navitas is the up and coming, not necessarily up and coming, they're well established. Everybody's using them. I've used them before, very comfortable with Luke and his team. One really good thing, want to remind everybody, there's grant money that covers the cost of all of this. At the end, they're going to do an energy audit for us, make some recommendation, run through some numbers. We can choose to do those projects, not choose to do those projects. And they even help us fill out the grant paperwork that pays their fee. So in the end, we just get a lot of great information and a lot of great choices. And all three of our architect selection says that they have positive experiences and could integrate them into whatever plan. So we should be good there.
All right. Questions? Can I get a motion to approve Navitas for an energy audit?
I move we approve Navitas for our energy audit.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Being none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Transportation contract.
Main points that was included, it's in line with the previous increase that we discussed last month. Be reviewed annually, just in case costs go one way or another. It'd be great if inflation reversed itself and we could negotiate the other way, but which is about a $3,000 route increase per route for 9 routes. So we go from about 27K to a little over, or 37K to a little over 40. Same special trips increases, some smaller increases to mileage, that sort of thing. Includes all the elements that it did before, including handicap vehicle, pre-K service, you name it.
Questions? To me, it seemed like it was in line, more in line than other increases we've seen from vendors this year. No questions? If not, can I have a motion to move forward with the transportation contract?
I move we move forward with the transportation contract.
Can I get a second?
A second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those the same. Motion carries. PT special education bid.
Guys. A little bit of a late ad, but you all should have received that related services bid summary either today or sometime over the weekend. Just kind of giving you a generalized overview. So if I'm rambling or if I'm going on about things that you already know, just feel free to say, but we're good, we're ready to move on. So you won't offend me. But overall, the goal is contracting with a company or companies to provide services, evaluate, propose IEP goals with compliance with the IDEA while managing a fiscally responsible mindset with students in Osage County R2. Go back, for those of you that are like, I feel like we just talked about this last year. We had been with 2 prior companies for multiple years in the past. Those 2 companies have actually submitted a bid. Due to a maternity leave with one of our related services, we opted to look into, not we, prior administration opted to look into a different route to see if possibly they could facilitate all of those needs with one specific company. And that's what they ultimately did with Compass Therapy Solutions out of Columbia, with that desire to hopefully cover speech for that maternity leave, as well as have OT and PT. Unfortunately, they've had, like multiple people have had significant staff shortages. I mean, it's a constant conversation. These, they're getting constantly different, not just new therapists, but right out of school therapists who just are going to need a lot of training. And they actually, they weren't even able to complete the physical therapy portion of it. We had that in November, at the November board meeting, you all voted to go to Warrior Therapy contractors for the remainder of the school year. So that's kind of like the overview where we're at right now. So we went out for bid, and then in your all's packets on that summary, I did list those in order of my recommendation. So my recommendation, my number 1 would be SEMO Therapy Services. That's just years. We've had her for multiple years in a row prior to this. After discussing it with some people that were part of that original decision making to pivot from her, kind of like, well, why did we opt for that if it was, as great as it was seeming? Ultimately, it was just kind of that decision to have that one centralized hub. And it wasn't anything against her, it just happened to be that convenience piece for Compass for last year. Some big takeaways that puts her above the others. One is obviously the experience that she has with the district and the positive feedback I'm getting as far as reliability. There have been a couple of things that would traditionally provide some hiccups, like she's had a few children, she's had to have some fill-ins, but she seems to have a pretty solid stack of either alternative occupational therapists or CODAs, which would be those assistants. She does one thing that she does and nobody else does is differentiates her rates depending on service. So the highest service is obviously going to be that one-to-one meeting with students, but she actually opts to charge lower rates when she's working on paperwork and things like that, which no other company that submitted a bid will do. She does not charge for her travel to get here, doesn't charge mileage. Her time starts whenever she's working. She does ask that her billing can start, I believe, 15 minutes beforehand to get everything set up and get set up that way. And then she offers, like I said, a CODA. So that would be my number 1 bid, or my number 1 recommendation. I do want to point out in this world, I'll give you all an estimated cost, but it's very difficult to estimate the cost of this, unfortunately. We could have a group of pre-K kiddos that come in that are excelling in all areas, and there's not really a need to evaluate, or the exact flip side of that is a very high need. We try not to evaluate everybody. We have a dial test that marks if there's a likeliness that there is a need for it, and we decide to evaluate based on that. But there's really no way to tell. So I do want to point out these therapy service estimates. I've just looked at some past bills and try to calculate off of there, but I don't want you all to be like, why was the bill, $5,000 more than what you had originally estimated? We unfortunately just can't control the amount of needs that come in, and it could absolutely go the other way if there isn't any. Second option would be Warrior Therapy Solutions. We do use them for PT. They've been extremely reliable. We never use them for OT because Jessica is so reliable with that. They do bill their hourly rate for travel, which really knocks us, which ultimately, and for PT was one of the deciding factors to opt with a different company, substantially higher, whenever you calculate that in. They also have a thing in there that if it's an inclement weather day, they're gonna bill the exact same way, which Jessica does not do. She'll try and make it work, as far as what I figured out. Special Learning Center, they have very positive recommendations throughout the community. I don't know if you guys kind of a popular name around. We've never worked with them personally. Unfortunately, when they submitted a bid, I think you all saw, it was pretty limited. So whereas everybody else, I'm talking about some specifics of their contract, I can't tell you if they may charge for inclement weather days. They may, do some other like different things that I would specifically point out if I had that information available, and I don't. They charge their rates start as soon as they leave to head here, and they also charge a mileage fee on top of that. So that would not be my recommendation. My last recommendation, Compass Therapy, is attempting to go into bid with us as well. Again, therapists express limited knowledge in IDA compliance. Simply, it's not their fault, but typically they're right out of school, and that typically causes some increased billing, needing consulting and that sort of thing. Unreliable experience. We've had multiple OTs, multiple CODAs come in, which makes it really hard for our compliance piece and timelines and things like that. Language in the contract allows them to notify the district to discontinue services basically with a 30-day notice and no penalty, which just professionally and personally, I just have a problem with. I think we're in a contract, we should kind of both have a vested interest in continuing it. And then with that, with PT, it kind of felt like, oh, we have this language in the contract, and they were able to say, we can't do it. And to me, that was just difficult to work with. They charge the same rate for all services. So for PT, be my recommendation to go with Jessica Hughes, seeing both therapy services. I think it's the most cost effective. I think it's what's best for our students as well. Checks both those boxes.
Bob, do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. Choose the
Questions? Can I have a motion to approve the recommended company for PT special education?
CMO therapy services for OT services. I'll make a motion for that.
Occupational therapy, right? Not PT.
All right.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those the same? Very good, very thorough.
Awesome.
All right.
And then I have PT as well. I apologize. Very similar
Oh.
companies, though. The only difference is Jessica doesn't do PT. She's all OT. So basically, take her off the list for PT. It would be Warrior Therapy Solutions. We're already currently in contract with them.
Okay.
We can acknowledge there are some obviously rooms
Okay.
for improvement, but we can't.
All right.
You know.
So you're recommending them?
I recommend you continue
Okay.
with them. Yes.
Should we clarify with Special Learning Center if they would bill us if there was a inclement weather day?
I will be very transparent. They basically said, like, we have so many schools we contact with. You just let us know if your board is willing to go on a contract, and we'll send it to you that way. They were just very limited on what information they can give. I don't know if it wasn't typical for any other company. I just think they were kind of like, you let us know, we'll send you the contract when you're ready to sign it, sort of a deal. Personally, just with my experience, I'd much rather be able to see it and give you all a thorough recommendation. As far as cost wise, we haven't worked with them before, and they're very similar. Like, basically what I'm trying to say, that the issues we have with Warrior as far as billing, it's the exact same with Special Learning Center plus a mileage cost.
Do you know any other schools that have worked with them? Like for
Yeah.
reference checks?
Yeah, I mean, I could see if they just kind of have like a blanket contract. I don't know if they.
I'm just thinking mileage wise or closer, so that'd be
Oh,
less
sure.
there. And then for us not to be billed for a snow day, if that's something they don't do, but
Right. Part of it is we have a substantially lower PT case. We only have about 2 hours a week right now. OT, we have about 12 hours a week. So if it was OT, I'd be much more concerned because there's multiple days out of the week. PT, the likeliness that I could call Andrea and say like, hey, they're calling for snow on this day. Is it likely that we can just move PT to a different day or maybe double up time on the next week so we don't get billed for that? I think is much more likely in the PT world as opposed to the OT when it's multiple days at work. if
so
that
I
makes
may be
sense.
stupid too. I have a question.
There you go.
Forgive me. PT, for football. They wanted to have a physical therapist for games. Is that not something we work with these companies for too?
Not to my knowledge, this would just be for
It is a
specialized,
completely
like,
different. Okay.
yeah, that would be like more athletic training. Yeah, they may be a.
Well, I was just
place to
thinking it was a
start to get-
struggle last year to find a PT to be there present for games, so I didn't know if
They
these
actually-
companies would work in conjunction for that, but
It may be a good place to start to see if they'd be willing, but as far as company wise, yeah.
it's a trainer that comes.
Yeah, you're talking about a trainer, sideline trainer.
See? I
Yeah.
told you, it's fun.
They're,
I guarantee it. I'm sure I would drop it.
this upcoming year.
Okay, where are we at here? We're discussing.
Warrior for PT.
Mhm.
I make a motion to approve Warrior for PT.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
And since you've had a working relationship with them, this past year, we should probably continue that for the time being.
Can answer any questions for you guys.
I think the more details that we get from Special Learning Center, the higher that number is gonna go, in my personal opinion. So I know it's comparable now, it's just a couple $100 apart, but I think if we dig into details, that is only gonna go northward. It's not gonna get lesser.
And I will say there was a concern, the fact that we work with so many schools. I just worried that we may be in the same boat. I mean, I don't want to put them in the same category as Compass by any means, but I worry that language almost implied to me that I was like, would they be able to fulfill the contract if they do get this huge bombardment? And that's the unfortunate part is when you're only talking 2 hours a week and they add in language like, we can just opt out in 30 days with a 30-day notice. I just would hate if we're at the bottom of the bucket going, well, we don't have room for everybody, so we'll just not nix the, small bill that we get every month. I'm not saying that they would do that, but that was my concern with them.
Further discussion? Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand. Both the same. Motion carries. Approval of certified staff salary for 20, thank you very much, 23-24 school year.
As we talked about last month, and just wrestling with budget, one of my concerns was having a competitive certified staff salary schedule. So I reached out to all of our conference schools. In general, we are in the top quartile. So at the very top, you get about 35.2. We're at 34.3, and at the very bottom, you get right around 33,000. So our adding $500 to the base last year just put us in a better position. I don't think we can afford to be done yet, but I do not believe we can afford to add again to the base this year, considering how many other needs we have, including the non-certified staff salary schedule, which is based on a formula percentage of our certified staff schedule. So I'm recommending that we adopt our staff salary schedule that we did last year, including the teacher-based salary grant for 38,000. And that any adjustments that we would do to salary, I'd like to get us on maybe a review every other or every third year for our staff salary. We're gonna have to keep talking about it to be competitive. I know we are, because every single superintendent that I talk about is talking about how to put more money in salaries, because they're just not getting applicants. And they're doing, the primary driver is whether or not a person can pay their bills. So as we have in 22-23, with an eye to review it every other or every third year, keeping the kind of the back pocket strategy. And if I can tweak our non-certified salaries, which doesn't cost us nearly as much, going into next year, that we get on some rotation of going between the two, certified versus non-certified. I hope that was as clear as mud, but essentially the same as we did for 22-23 and 23-24 with the teacher-based salary included.
We feel like that's what most schools are doing this year.
They're all looking at increasing, but for us and our conference, they didn't bump last year. They're looking at doing something similar than we did last year, but none of the schools that are ahead of us are doing that. It's the schools that are at that 32 to 33 range that are going to bump into the 33 and 34 range and join us.
Questions? none, can I get a motion to approve the certified staff salary schedule for 23-24?
I'll make a motion to approve the certified staff schedule. Salary schedule.
Got a motion, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second, further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, the same. All right, announcements, commencement is May 14th. Make sure board has that on their schedule. The next meeting will be 2 days after that on May 16th. With that, I would love to have a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I move we adjourn to closed session pursuant to RSMO 6101021. Sign subsections 13 relative to personally identifiable employment information, 3 personnel action, 6 personally identifiable student information, 1 legal action involving a public body and or privileged communications among that body and its representatives, attorneys.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote. Mark,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Naomi,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
and I am a yes. We are now adjourned to closed session. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us.